Evening. This is Maia, Rasheed, and Damanpreet Singh on behalf of Brentwood Votes. This evening, we're here to conduct a campaign interview with Ms. Karen Rarey, a current member of the Brentwood City Council and a candidate for the Brentwood City Mayor. Welcome, Ms. Rarey. How are you doing today? And is there anything you'd like to start off with saying to our followers and audience?
I'm doing fantastic today. I just want to come here and be able to let people know what I stand for in this community and the difference that I've made so far in the last 4 years that I've been on the council and what my plans are for the future.
Great. All right. So to kick this off with the first question, what issue would you like to kick off your first day in office with?
Well, I'm already kind of kicking that off already. One of the main things we've got to do, that our small businesses are the backbone of our community. And at our last council meeting, I did request that we look into providing grants or workshops or one-on-one counseling to not only help these small businesses recover from their COVID-related losses, but also to help them grow, because we're already losing them. I've already seen businesses shuttering, and the majority of what we have here in town are small businesses. And so we've got to do something to help them survive. And so that is something that I'm going to continue working on. I was just downtown Brentwood today speaking with the president of the Downtown Business Coalition regarding a way that they can continue to do outside eating into the winter months. It's a pretty neat idea that they're bringing it. It came from Truckee, and it is like stages being set up where they'd be able to actually extend out into the first the parking spaces in front of their place. And it's an enclosed with a cover with lights in there, and it is really a cool idea. And if we can incorporate that, because as you know, with the flu coming up, there's a chance that we're going to go backwards in the tier system that the state has set up, just because they don't know the difference between someone who's got the flu and somebody who's got COVID. And so they may roll us back a little bit. And that's why the Downtown Business Coalition is looking at a way to provide space for their restaurants to be able to do it in the cold, in the rain, in the wind. And so it is really a neat idea.
Okay, great. So how do you plan on turning and maintaining Brentwood as a self-sustaining city? And in doing so, how would you go about building new jobs without driving out existing sectors in town?
So this has been a couple of year process so far. There was a economic development strategy action plan that was done, and we adopted it not too long after I got onto the council. In there, it looked at the different types of cluster of businesses that we should be attracting to Brentwood. And they're looking at biotech, maybe high tech. It's going to be hard to pull that away from Silicon Valley, but the research and development, advanced manufacturing, medical, and food processing. Right now, our farmers are transporting all their stuff down south, I think out to Modesto and to Bakersfield, in order to get these things processed. So if we can have something here locally, it will help. So those are the clusters that we've identified that will are what we should attract here, but also what will grow in the future. We wanted things that aren't on their way out. And these are things that they decided were things that are here to stay. So then I was part of, or a co-chair of, the zoning of 430 acres in Northwest Brentwood. So the area, if you're driving down Highway 4, it's between Sand Creek and Lone Tree, and it's all that ag area on both sides of the free. So that's going to be our economic development area. It's we zoned it employment center, light industrial, for those types of jobs. And we went through the environmental impact report. So that took about 2 years to go through that process. We're now doing the fine detail of master planning it, and the consultants that are doing the master planning said that should take, they should be done within 6 months, and we should be able to be marketing it within the year. And so we'll finally be able to start attracting businesses there. 2 years ago, I also asked that the city look into enhanced infrastructure financing funds. And we have a consultant currently creating 3 different enhanced infrastructure finance districts. One of them will be for the entire length of Brentwood Boulevard. The other one will be for that, what they're calling the Innovation Center, that 430 acres. And then there's also the downtown. Any growth in taxes in that area will then be used for infrastructure and improving that along Brentwood Boulevard in the downtown area, doing private-public partnerships to be able to attract businesses here. We've also approved $11.5 million in infrastructure improvements in that 430 acres. And it's extending Hindorn Ranch Road towards Sand Creek. It's extending Jeffrey Way there, that when you get off the freeway where the Chuck E. Cheese is, it's going to extend that all the way towards the creek. And it's going to bring all the wet utilities, your water, your sewer, and all of that underneath the Highway 4 bypass, so that the cost of that is not absorbed by the businesses. We also just approved $1.5 million in economic development incentive grants. So when we find a business that's going to be great for our area, we'll be able to offer them funding to help level out the fees, because our fees are a little higher. We have more things that they pay for in our area. So this will help level the playing field or bring us even more enticing than some of the other areas. And then the last thing that we need to do is work with our neighboring cities. We need, we currently have a memorandum of understanding with Antioch, Oakley, the county, and Pittsburgh. And it's the Northern Waterfront Economic Development Initiative. And we're going to market this area as a region. We're not going to fight against each other for jobs. What might work in our city may not work in Pittsburgh, and vice versa. And so it'll help us to attract companies to the region as an opportunity corridor. And I'm sorry, there's one more thing, agritourism. I spent the last year working with the farmers, or the farmers and the county, doing a monthly working group for land use zoning changes in agriculture, and not to get rid of the farms, but to increase agritourism. Some of the smaller farms, it makes it difficult for them to farm, because by the time the cost of picking the fruit and getting it off to market, it costs them more money to do that. So by allowing them to maybe have a bed and breakfast on their land, or a farm stay where people can come there and actually go out and farm, because you know, we've got the Silicon Valley people who might be enticed on learning how to do some farming out in the country. And also farm to fork cafes, so that people can enjoy that food that's grown right there on that farm. And so we also were going to kick off a wine trolley this past May during an event. And if that pilot program was successful, we were looking at bringing a wine trolley in that would stop at the wineries, maybe stop at the bed and breakfast or the farm stays, and drop people off at the farm to fork cafes, and then drop them off in the downtown area or the streets of Brentwood to help drive foot traffic. And the other thing that will help us become sustainable is, right now we have 88% of our public commuting out of the area. Our sales tax dollars are going to other cities. They're spending their money going out to lunch, maybe going out to dinner after work, going out for drinks, maybe going out shopping during lunchtime, or some type of entertainment. So they're spending their money outside of our city. When we bring the jobs here into our town, we're also increasing the foot traffic during the day, which will help increase business for our small businesses. We'll stop seeing these small businesses closing up because they're not able to make it, because we now have the daytime foot traffic, which in turn increases our sales tax, and all of that will help to make us physically sustainable into the future.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you've been doing that work. It sounds amazing. Especially agritourism. That sounds really cool.
It is one thing that's a big part of what I want to do. Yeah. We love our ag and we can't get rid of it. We need to have that, but we need to make it sustainable for the farmers.
For sure. So with that said, I'm sure you know Brentwood's been experiencing high population booms and it's continued to grow. So how would you, if elected mayor, address the rising costs of living and supporting livable wages here for like industries you bring in and the existing industries?
The industries we're going to be bringing in are the high quality, high wage jobs. We're not going to be bringing in a warehouse. In fact, I made sure that they had that in there. Plus they had auto repair shops in there and I had all those things removed because while a mechanic may make $20 to $30, maybe even $50 an hour, so sorry about that. I've been gone all day, so she's letting me know that she misses me. So, and a storage place has one person probably working there, and they're not livable wages. So the type of jobs we're bringing in are going to be that your research and your development, your advanced manufacturing. So we are looking at high quality, high wage jobs from that area, not minimum wage jobs. The other thing about affordability in this area is I've been, one of my main focuses when I got into the city council was affordable housing. And right now we have a large part of our population who is only making minimum wage, who's at the barely making it stage, or maybe having to work 2 or 3 jobs. And so the affordable housing, I pushed forward and requested that we have a housing policy committee done up. And honey, can you take care of the dog, please? Well, I guess that's all I needed to say. So the affordable housing was at 2% when it was the city council, and that's 2%. Let's say they had 200 homes, they'd have to build 4 homes. But the city council was letting them pay in lieu fees instead of building 2 inclusionary houses. Those houses, I've now got to increase so that this year we're at 6% and next year goes to 10%. The builders have to build. And I've also asked for an increase in the amount of in lieu fees, but with a preference to have them build the houses instead. That will help. Let's say you're a family of 4. I think the income level considered at low income for that was $66,000 to I think $104,000 for a family of 4, and they'd be able to move into a house that that may cost $250,000, but they'd be able to go into that house. The city could provide them with a grant or a loan for $10,000 for that entry level thing that they could pay off when they move, so that they can get that paid off at that time instead of having to pay it right then. So that helps. And let's say you're a single person. I think it was a single person could get $44,000 to $68,000, I think was what it was, for a single person could qualify at the low income. But then there's also the very low income. So it can help those people finally be able to afford a place. I think at the low income for the single person was maybe $1,096 for a 1-bedroom, where right now you're looking at, for a studio, upwards of $1,600 and $1,700 here in Brentwood, a studio apartment. So that will also help with the continuing builders. Plus we have mostly multifamily units that are left to be built. And we are now being able to allow inclusionary apartments in there, which will also help to house some of the people who have the lower incomes, so that they're not having to work that second or third job, and they can be able to finally have food that they can eat instead of, you know, living on top ramen every day of the week.
So kind of building off of that question, many city officials and bodies, including the city council you currently serve on, have heavily underestimated the true concentration of homeless in Brentwood, as evidenced in the recent online forum involving county officials. Why was this the case, and how would you go about supporting and empowering low-income, underserved, and homeless populations?
So, and I understand where the numbers come, where they, you know, there's 36 that they see on a regular basis, that they're actually homeless. Then you have the unsheltered that are living in their cars. And I think we're going to be seeing a whole lot more of these as businesses close, people don't have income coming in. The moratorium on the rent and the moratorium on the evictions and the foreclosures, when that gets lifted, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more people losing their homes because they, you know, granted, they had a moratorium, but what happens after that moratorium's ended and you owe, you know, $15,000 in back rent because you weren't able to pay it. So now they're living in their cars or out on the streets. We need to work on this as a regional thing. We need to work with Antioch and Oakley and Pittsburgh, and because they do move from place to place. There is no borders. The city limits, you know, they may be in Antioch one day, but they may be in Brentwood another day. There's movement out there. And so that's why I think that this needs to be a regional operation of working together to solve the homeless problems. We do have one shelter in town. It's the Shepherd's Gate. It is for homeless and battered women and families. Great program. I've been out there. I've gone through there, and it's really an interesting arrangement. Each one has their own rooms. If they got kids, you know, they have the bunk beds in there. They do communal cooking at times, but then they also have their own cooking and feeding and all the programs that they have there. We need to look at something like that to help people not just get off the streets, but to help them move the next steps forward. And working with the county and trying to get as many grants as that we can in order to do that is going to be vital in the next year to 2 years if we are going to help those who have lost their homes.
Yeah, that's a great approach. So moving along, we're going to move on to mental health, specifically mental health and the clear lack of resources and safe spaces, especially in our public schools. It's been a growing concern amongst young voters and Brentwood voters, residents overall. How would you go about promoting mental health awareness and showing not only the young generation, but all generations of Brentwood citizens that they have resources here to go through whatever they may be going through?
You know, I did a ride along with the police, and that ride along we had, one of our calls was to a young man who was threatening suicide, a teenager. And we arrived on the scene. One of the calls was also to the mental health team that the county has. The county provides us at no cost. You can call 211 for this. You can, there's also another phone number, and I'll have to look that one up, but that you can call for the mental health services through the county. I think bringing more awareness to that. I mean, I even during COVID, I posted all the different resources that were available because being shelter in place is difficult for a lot of people. Not having that human connection is vital for some people that just need that in order to survive day to day. I know I was getting a little bottled up here, even though there's 4 people that live in this house. I really missed that connection with other people. So I went through and found all the resources for that, and I posted them. And they're broken down into groups too, even to the youth and who they should be calling and all the different resource numbers there. And I think that that's something that needs to be brought forward at the school levels. You know, the counselors there, they don't have time enough to talk to you about your classes, let alone help you or identify those who are really in need. So I think maybe even working with the school districts to see how we can help with teachers identifying those that might need some extra help, that might need that mental health, bringing in the county's mental health to help with those. There is a lack there for the mental health. It really is lacking, but there are resources out there. People just aren't aware of them, and I think that's where the disconnect comes for our entire community. You know what? If you guys can, I'm gonna go pause my husband over there. If he's got the door.
Yeah, no problem.
He was also on a conference call.
No worries, totally understandable.
Yeah, no worries. So moving on to the interview. With all the privileges and responsibilities in a mayor's seat, how would you go about working with the Brentwood community to maintain and bolster transparency between Brentwood citizens and yourself? And how will you ensure you remain a leader by the people for the people while maintaining the challenges associated with elected office and privileged information?
You know, I've already been doing that. I post everything up on the internet. I'm gonna put her outside. Sorry about that.
No worries.
And I don't think that worked much because they opened the door right after I closed it. Okay, so the question was transparency. So I'm already informing the public of what's happening. During the COVID, I was on, in that first 90 days, I probably did over 100 posts giving resource information to people, resource information to small businesses, things that the city's doing, things that the county's doing. I've been posting all of the agendas that the city has, and so I'll not only post the agendas, but then I'll also put the page number of where each one starts so that you can easily just code that page when you open up a 1,500 page agenda and know exactly where that staff report is for that. I think it's important that the public is aware of what's going on, and that's why I've been doing all this posting. But I also started in January of last year, I started doing coffees with Karen, and it's a very informal thing. I do it in a different place each month, and that's because people go where it's convenient. So if I'm doing it over at Willie's over there on Balfour and West Country Club, somebody who lives over there in East Brentwood or North Brentwood they may have good intentions and say, yeah, I want to go. But then that morning time comes and they think, you know what, not this time. So I move it to a different location. I try to do it in small businesses so that they get the benefit of it. And I get anywhere between 5 to 16 people who come and they bring their questions, they bring their concerns. And I bring maps with me. I bring all the binders that I can talk to them about the different things that are going on. And I've enjoyed doing that. How can I serve the people if I don't know what they want? I mean, I can sit up there all day long and say, well, I think this is what the community wants. But unless I'm hearing from the community, I'm making my decision based on me, not based on what the community wants. And that to me is very important. When Goodwill wanted to build a processing plant and a retail store and a training center over there on Balfour Road at the entrance to a neighborhood, I did the research that determined that their almost 10,000 square foot warehouse, their processing plant, I found a Goodwill video that showed that it has forklifts in there that bale 1,000 pounds of soft goods, your clothing, your bedding, your stuffed animals, and bales those things and stores them in there until they can get a truck to fill that up and take them off. They had hazardous waste bins in there. And trucks coming in and out of there. They had two different loading bays in the back. And that's light industrial. The neighborhood was up in arms. I listened to what they had to say. I researched it, and I didn't just look at the report that was in front of me from staff. This information I went out and found myself. I mean, as I said, Goodwill had their own video of they were so proud of their processing plants and what their processing plants were about. I did a Google search of all the different Goodwill stores in the Bay Area. And then when you do, and you're looking over the Google from the sky, the satellite, you're seeing these trucks that are just left and the cab is taken away and they just leave the back of the truck there. And some of them have 2 or 3 of them. Some of them have like clothing sprawled out of them. Antioch, I think, had like 15 or 16 at their location. And because of my research, we were able to deny that project for coming in there, which is what the people wanted. And right now I'm working with, there's the Sienna housing along Balfour and Highway 4, and then Trilogy in Somerset. They all have the sound that from the vehicles going by their homes has gotten very loud. So I called for a noise study to determine what can we do. Do we put earthen mounds there to help absorb some of that land or some of that noise so that it pushes it upward instead of down over to those homes? Unfortunately, just as we were getting ready to do that, COVID hit, and trying to do a sound study at that time, the noise level would have been so low that we wouldn't have been able to accurately fix whatever the problem was. And they've understood that. Deer Ridge had the issue with the golf course closing. And they have their front entrance. I don't know if you guys have gone by that area at all, but it's completely dead. And there's like 19 or 20 park strips with trees and bushes in it that were also being maintained by the golf course. The golf course can no longer water it because their pump is broken. $150,000 for a pump. I spoke with some of the residents and I said, you know, would you be willing to, if we could find out what it would cost to transfer this over to the city, would you guys be willing to pay for that to be included in your lighting and landscape district? It would have been originally, but the golf course said, oh, we'll take it. So we did figure that out, and it should be coming back, I think either the end of the last meeting in October, the first one in November. It should be coming back to the city council to approve and send out for a ballot for a vote of the people to determine if they want to spend their money. And I think it's $50 a year for this per household, and $30 of that will end in 15 years. So those are some of the things that I've done because I listen to what the people want. I bring it forward and I help to address that. The massage parlors, we had human trafficking problems and illicit massage parlors popping up all over town. And so I called for stronger massage parlor ordinances so that we could curtail the human trafficking. It gives our police officers and our code enforcement more tools in order to shut those businesses down. So those are just some of the things that I've done, and these are concerns that neighbors have brought to me, and that's what I'm hired to do. That's what I'm elected to do, is to work for the people, not for me.
Yeah, that's great that you're being accessible as an elected official. It's tough some places, so I'm glad that you do that work. Moving along, with all the current national conversation centering racial and restorative justice, how will you go about meeting demands to uplift, amplify, and center underserved and marginalized citizens? As many citizens have read, we too read your June 6th post written in response to the police who murdered George Floyd, and saw how you discussed some local options. However, we also we noticed the image of you riding a bike with a Blue Lives Matter flag at the end, currently posted on your website. This somewhat sends an incoherent message, especially when you currently propose expanding the Brentwood Police during a moment when Black citizens demand their elected officials value them and end police brutality, back up and fund community-oriented programs. Given this, how can citizens expect you to show up as an ally and foster systemic belongings for all Black citizens, citizens of color, members of the LGBTQIA+ community, citizens with disabilities, low-income and/or homeless citizens, and all other underserved and marginalized peoples? Would you pursue community-based options which prevent crime and properly support citizens with resources currently unavailable or inaccessible, like adequate and accessible mental health systems and affordable housing?
So, well, I've talked about the affordable housing. That's something that I drove. I had a hard fight against the current vice mayor. Yeah. He has been pro-development and he has been the one who fought me the most on moving from 2% up to 10% and to move away from the in lieu fees. So I am working on the affordable housing. The homeless, as I said, this is something that I think we should do on a regional basis. The Blue Lives flag that my husband has on his motorcycle, we do support it. My son actually just graduated from an academy for a sheriff in Tennessee, so a deputy sheriff there. So, and we're a military family on top of that. I have at length spoke with our chief about what is happening in our police department. And one of the things that happened right around the George Floyd incident was that they reviewed all of their de-escalation techniques. They wanted to see what they could improve on. They've gone through an entire training on this de-escalation. They've also gone through a bias training because we're all born and raised with certain biases. And it's something that people may not even realize because it's something that they've been around since they were little. And so they wanted these officers to be able to identify on what their biases are and how do they go around them. How do they become productive and treat everybody fairly out there by acknowledging the biases that they have. They also are going through restorative justice training. So instead of incarcerating people all the time, is there a different avenue that they can look at for somebody who may be having some problems that can be done, that can be resolved without going to jail, whether it be finding a resource or counseling or getting the mental health, maybe medications that they need. Those are the types of things that they're also doing. We're also, the police are also getting a simulator that will give them that, like they could simulate that they're at Heritage High School and there's a shooter out there, and so they can simulate that happening right there and be able to train on this thing. And they'll be training 2.5 hours a couple times a month on this thing so that they continue to have the de-escalation. They've also eliminated all of their, there is no chokeholds in this. They had, they didn't have the chokehold that was out there, but they did have a different type to hold. And that they have banned as well. So those are some of the things that they're moving forward on. Now you have, I believe you're part of the Equity Forum. Did you not receive an invitation to join that? And I'm sorry, how do you say your first name?
Yeah, it's Damanpreet.
Damanpreet? Okay.
Yeah.
So we want to be able to use that in order to determine what is wrong in Brentwood. What issues do we need to fix? Use that to drive policy and make the changes necessary for equality and equity in this city. You know, and I don't know if I've said this to either one of you before, but my daughter-in-law, well, my father-in-law, my son's father-in-law is Black. And I talked with him at that time and he says, Karen, when you taught your son to drive, or your sons, because I have 3 sons, or actually we have 4 sons, sorry about that. When you taught them how to drive, did you have to tell them that if you get pulled over, to keep your hands at the top of the steering wheel, not to move, and if you are going to move, to explain exactly what you're doing as you're doing it and do it slowly? And always answer an officer as they're talking to you politely, and make no quick motions in any way. He says, because I had to teach my boys that. Every Friday night, my son was a star basketball player in high school. Every Friday night, him and his friends would go down for a hamburger, and every Friday night, they got pulled over. This was not here in this town, it was in Fremont. So, and he said, my other son's out walking our dog, gets pulled over because why are you out here? What are you doing? He's out just walking the dog, and he's like, they're treating him like he's going to a dog fight with their dog. And those are the types of instances that we need to make sure don't happen in our town. And as a mayor, if something like that is happening, if our police force is treating our residents like that, I need to know. I need to help resolve that, because nobody should ever have to feel that way. Nobody should have to feel like they are less than another person, or scared to be pulled over because they're a person of color. That shouldn't have to happen in our town. And I gotta say, this pastor that at a peace prayer vigil that I went to, he said it the best, is that, you know, we keep having incidents that happen out there, and that a person of color is killed or injured very badly, and it's by the hand of a police officer. And all of a sudden we all jump up and we all jump in and we say, we want to make a difference. We're going to do this to make a difference. But and change does happen. But then everybody kind of hits the snooze button. Things roll back some. And he says, we got to stop hitting that snooze button. And it's true, we got to stop hitting that snooze button. We need to make sure that we move forward as a community, make changes so that so that everybody feels safe and welcome in this community. I mean, I could not believe when I went to the student rally, I could not believe what I was hearing from those students who had either went through our school district or are going through it, and the racial comments that were made to them and the way that they treated, that just should not happen in the school districts. And I'm hopeful that Yolanda Mendrick will bring this back to her board, whatever things have come back from the Equity Forum, to make changes there in the school districts. But we need to make changes in our city as well. And I want to drive policy, but I want to drive it through the Equity Forum in things that have been identified and changes that need to happen. But if it's not being brought up there and somebody wants to let me know about it, that's also something that I feel is important. If there's an injustice happening in our city by the hand of any staff member in our community, whether it be a police or a garbage man, we need to know that in order to make a change and address it.
In regards to the Equity Forum, how would you promise these actions don't fall into performatism and fail to yield results? How will you value and center the voices of people who have historically never been valued, such as people of color, including myself?
Well, as I said, I'm hoping that this committee will help drive change. And I haven't seen everybody who's on the forum. Some of the names sound familiar, but I'm not familiar with everybody who's on there. But I am hoping that it brings to light things that are happening in our community, changes that we can make. And as I said, make policy changes, not just, okay, well, we'll take care of this for right now. I think this is something that we really need to listen to the community as a whole. I'm hoping that the meetings are, I mean, for now, if the meetings can be publicized on a live version as you're having your virtual meetings, and that the public can join in. Because I think that you'll get, and I hate to say it, but I think on a virtual level, you may get more participation from the public than you would if it was, they had to come into a meeting hall where a meeting's taking place. People feel more comfortable when they can talk from behind a screen through a camera, or even just having their name across there and not have to have their face seen so that they can speak freely. And so I'm hoping that you'll get a bigger participation from the community so that we hear what's going on. And I do want to publicize those meetings. I think it's important that we hear from the entire community if change is going to be made to improve this community.
That concludes this interview. Thank you, Ms. Karen Rarey, for participating in this event and for sharing your views. It was really enlightening. We wish you the best of luck in the election, and thank you to everyone who viewed this interview today. We hope you guys have a great evening.